Okay, at this point, we're considering the public comment will be next, and I would like to first of all have a show of hands of how many people expect to talk, because that will determine how much time we can allow you. Okay, I'll hold you to that, and I think probably we're probably going to have to add some time on, but let's see how it goes. If you would try to keep your comments to 2 minutes, I would appreciate it, because we've got a number of hands up here. And if it's something that you feel somebody else has touched on, just please state that. I agree with other people about this particular item, and let it be at that, okay? All right, sir. Give your name first.
Harold White. Is that working? There we go. Harold Whitesburg, Costa Mesa citizen. First of all, I want to thank the committee. I know how tough it is to be on these committees, and despite everything, it's citizens volunteering their time, and I appreciate that. I really do. The second thing is, I think probably we got off on the wrong foot with this committee, because the first thing that everybody asked was, what changes do we want? And no due diligence was done at the beginning. What's really good is due diligence is being done now. And I'd like that to be seriously considered, and then maybe revisit what might be a reasonable change. I think one of the key things that came up at last night's city council meeting was when Byron said he wanted to hire 2 consultants to investigate and do needs assessments on various areas. And I think logic would dictate that if the chairman of the Parks and Recreation Committee says we need to do a needs assessment, maybe we should do a needs assessment before we start suggesting recommendations for changes to the park. It could be helpful in putting that. The last part I want to address is, again, a logic issue. If mitigating the problem of a Native American archaeological site is to cover it with 8 feet of dirt and then build a field on top of it to preserve it, then it would seem to me that the best way to keep our baseball fields in shape would be to take T. Winkle Park, cover it with 8 feet of dirt, and put a Native American village on top so we could visit it also. Thank you very much.
Please keep the applause to the minimum so we can move along and people line up. If you will, so that we can go quickly, one after the other. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Marin and committee members. I am Mary Fuel, president of the Costa Mesa Community Foundation. And in partnership with the city's recreation department, the foundation puts on concerts in the park at Fairview Park every summer, every Tuesday evening in July. And I'd just like to put in a good word for the for this loved summer event. Tradition and continuing that in Fairview Park. The concerts are on every Tuesday evenings in the grass area west of the main parking lot. We are on site between about 4 and 8 p.m. and we host about 2,500 to 3,000 people, Costa Mesa residents. This year we partnered with various Costa Mesa nonprofits and were able to share a portion of the proceeds of each concert with them. Concerts in the park is a real win-win, free outdoor music for residents, community bonding, and fundraisers for various city groups. We look forward to many years of concerts in the park in Fairview Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hi, my name's Cindy Black. I'm kind of finding these hearings rather boring because we all know what the outcome's going to be. My question is specifically directed to SRS. I would like them to explain to me about what happened at the Bolsa Chica site where artifacts were removed, dug up and removed, displaced, and the fine that resulted because of that to the developers that they were hired by. And I want to know why the city of Costa Mesa chose this particular company to help them.
Thank you. Maybe we could have somebody from SRS like to address that.
If I can provide a recommendation. Yes, Chairman. If I can provide a recommendation, let's go ahead and finish the public comments, and then when the committee goes ahead and addresses SRS.
Thank you. Okay, folks, if you will sign the blue cards so that we know who spoke, it helps with doing the minutes. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Patricia Martz, PhD, Professor Emerita, Cal State Los Angeles. And I want to say that the slide that showed the grading for the athletic field for ORA 855, the Theodem site, was great. The site was graded. It was ripped and graded because I was able to be out there to monitor that process, and I have photos to show it. So maybe you guys won't do it that way, but that could very well happen. There is in the mind of people who do construction that in order for the soil to stay in place, that they need to tear up the basic surface first so that it will adhere. And this is usually done for when you're going to build a house or something on top of a filled area. But in this case, it was done for the ballpark, and I have photos showing flags with little pin flags with midden where it was done. So I just wanted to clear that up. It is not a lie. The photo we showed is correct. The other comment I want to make is I haven't seen anything from SRS about preservation. I hear mitigation. And in this case, this site is far too important to be mitigated. It needs to be preserved. And as far as the boundary situation, out at the ORA 64, the Back Bay Newport site, the archaeologists excavated 100 1-by-1 meter pits and missed 600 burials. So I'm sorry, but our state-of-the-art just can't see what's under the ground until it's too late. Monitoring you can't preserve when you discover something with a bulldozer or a backhoe. So I'm saying the site extended into where the houses are at the end of Pacific, and there's a big likelihood you're going to find burials and things there. And I hope that you will preserve the site as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Good evening. My name is Mark Arblaster, and I'm the president of one of the local youth sports programs, the Newport Mesa Soccer Club. So while it's just my one voice, if we're counting statistics, consider my one voice to account for 250 children and their families. But I've been at this for 9 years now. I was with the club when we started 9 years ago. And I've been going to Costa Mesa Youth Sports Council meetings for probably 10 to 12 years when I was more active with ASA. And I can, without question, tell you that there is a dramatic shortage of fields in this community, and it negatively affects this community. Maybe if I could share some misconceptions. First of all, in terms of Fairview Park, I don't think any of the sports organizations want to be anywhere near the grounds that are being discussed this evening. The idea is to be over towards where the trains are in some of the unused area over there. Another misconception is that we have all these fields that are available. Well, they're not. Unlike when you and I were kids and school grounds were wide open, you could just go play. That was one of your playgrounds. Now there's fences. You can't get in. They're locked. And if you have over 9 kids, you need a permit. You know, things aren't like it. It's not like it used to be. So we don't really have access to these fields. A lot of the local kids don't have access to these fields. The adults in our community who aren't very well represented don't have access to fields to recreate and make for a good city. This time of year, as you know, it's dark at 5, and we just don't have adequate lighting. So it would really help this community if we could just carve out a small portion of that, all those acres for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening. My name is Lee Lowe, and I'm with the Costa Mesa Foundation. I echo Mary's comments about the concerts in the park, use of Fairview Park. Also, there's the Fish Fry, which is an annual event that the citizens of Costa Mesa and surrounding communities enjoy the use of the park for that. Plus, individual families enjoy the park as it is for picnicking, gatherings. There's also nature walks that you can take. I would encourage, as personally, not representing the foundation, that the undeveloped areas need to be monitored for use by the mountain or the off-road bicycles that seem to be making trails on the grounds, and unless you have monitoring of that usage, the kids or adults are just going to walk wherever they want or ride wherever they want onto the open areas. I do think you need to preserve the areas that have the vernal pools and the documented Native American sites. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
My name is Scott Mahaffey. I am the commissioner for Newport Mesa Friday Night Lights here in Costa Mesa, run at Jack Hammett. I spoke last time we were here. I have 104 teams. I have 3 fields. Only one of them is lit. It's a fraction of what the other youth groups have. We're a new group. We're 3 years old. We've grown from 90 kids 3 years ago to almost close to 900. I'm one of the many youth groups in the city. There was discussion last meeting that there's adequate school sites. Talked to Fountain Valley Girls Fast Pitch Softball. They were displaced because their school site was sold. Talked to Ocean View Little League. They were displaced because their school site was sold. Talked to now defunct Westminster Pony. Their school site was reconfigured. They lost all 4 of their fields. This happens at school sites. In Newport Mesa, we have 1 lit school site. There's 1. No other school sites are lit. I have 3 more weeks in my season, and I have 1 lit field for 104 teams to practice on, 4 days a week. The math doesn't work. Okay? So when you say there's plenty of fields, there aren't plenty of fields. There are plenty of fields during the summer, during the regular season, but once we go to daylight savings time, there aren't plenty of fields. These kids don't have places to play. So there are situations, and to say it won't happen in Newport Mesa is not true. Kaiser, now elementary, used to be Kaiser Middle School. It was closed for about 10 years during the 80s. It reopened as a middle school. There are situations where schools close, and it's not to say that if the city invests hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, to light or do something to a field, that the joint use agreement will not be eliminated, because it does have the stipulation that 12 months notification, the joint use agreement can be eliminated. Then the city does not get access to those fields, and the kids do not have access to those fields. So there are situations in which looking at school sites as a remedy is not necessarily the situation, because those can disappear and those are finite. We've only got the ones we have. We have 200 and something acres. It's estimated to more than that, but we're talking about 5% of that park as a option for use for green space. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Jack Morales. I'm the president of Costa Mesa Pony Baseball. And I also sit on the Youth Sports Council meeting once a month. And Scott's definitely has a challenge with that many kids. We don't have that many kids in the pony program. But I've been in these meetings now for going on 7 years, and I see the challenges. We talk about them every single month. Every single month, it's the same thing that we talk about. Users need fields. You know, new programs start up and they boom, and of course, nobody anticipated that kind of a boom. But the fact of the matter is, we have a problem, and the Youth Sports Council meets every single month to try and make the existing facilities better. but also now at this meeting, where we as a group are looking to actually add space, because if you're not involved with youth sports, you will not see the fact that we do need space. The kids need space. My profession is I work for a master developer down south. This is a hot topic at every juncture. How much recreation space are we going to have for our new community? It has to be adequate, because kids want to play sports, families want to put their kids into sports, and it's a very hot topic. Costa Mesa is not one of the newer communities, and even the new communities, when we try to plan it, we still miss the mark. There's never going to be enough, unfortunately, so we got to work with what we have. I mean, who would have thought that after we incorporated in 1953 with 16,000 residents, 35 years later in '88, we're at 90,000, and now we're over 100,000. There's just no way we could have anticipated that kind of a boom in families here. So I support this little small postage stamp at the end of the day. Yes, there are issues of archaeology, and there are issues that a process needs to be followed, and I think it's being followed, but at the end of the day, if that little piece of land can be multi-use, I think it would benefit the community as a whole.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening.
Folks, hold it down.
My name's Pilar. I'm a over 30-year resident of Costa Mesa. I grew up here. I grew up walking through Fairview Park when it was natural and wild. I'm a doctor of natural medicine, and I'm also an artist. I raised my daughter hanging out in Fairview Park. She went to Waldorf School, hiked those bluffs for over 10 years. I've been walking those bluffs every day for 15 years at least. I've seen changes in the Fairview Park. I saw when the signs came up, when the DG trails went in and all of that. I remember when the trash cans left, and that was, I was told, because of a budget thing. So it's really interesting to consider a turnaround, a tot lot, with the impact to that environment. I was walking Pacific Street today to walk the bluffs, and noticed that there's not even a consistent sidewalk on both sides of the street, or one side of the street continuously. The street is potholed. It's a kind of a, it's a really tight street. I can only imagine traffic impact, what that would look like if you were to put a turnaround and increase the traffic. I used to live on Canyon for 5 years, and one of my dear friends was hit pulling out of her driveway because of the traffic. So I really want to consider, I appreciate everybody who came forward with all their information, and I'm glad to hear that such considerations are made when development is being considered. But I think what Anna had said earlier this evening, that really consider what the citizens want, has to be taken into consideration first. And so I'd like to see the Fairview Park be preserved and kept natural and as wild as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gilbert Collins. I really appreciated the archaeological studies that are very important for the committee. An area that I think that is not mentioned in the master plan or the archaeological report of Dr. Koerper's is the effect of the capping on the vernal pool, which is adjacent. It borders the southern core area of the archaeological site. I'm certainly not a professional geologist or hydrologist, but the city had better involve them in a study, I should think. What's the effect of drainage into the vernal pool? And another thing that might be missing is what is the effect of construction, perhaps in a parking lot area? Would that affect the vernal pool? Something's got to help hold the water in the pool. And once again, professional geologists and hydrologists, I think, would be very essential. Another brief point is that if there is any archaeological site on the eastern side of Placentia, I think that's an extremely important thing to study, first of all, before you discuss any sort of development. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Yes.
Hi, I'm Rita Simpson, and I thank the committee for being here on behalf of the besieged and the attacked citizens and Indians who can't hire committees, can't hire research to defend them, and would never have thought such a thing could happen with the treaties that exist. That I hope that Costa Mesa would be responsible to the citizens here and not import sports ideas to enhance children to feel that they can only succeed by being in sports, but have separate desires from, we prefer to see about not destruction, but preservation, not ruining the city, not ruining places for citizens over by sports desires. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. Yes, sir, we're going to ask you just to hold just for a minute. I have to ask the committee now if we could have a motion to extend the time by half an hour. So moved. All right, do I have a second for that?
I'll second.
Okay.
You mean I get a half hour now?
Good try. Good try. No, we're going to hold the 2 minutes, please.
Gotcha. My name is Ed Baum. I'm a resident of Costa Mesa. I have been since the 60s. That's 1960. So that just to qualify that, I will say that I have been active in youth sports, youth organizations. I worked for the Boy Scouts of America for 13 years. My academic qualifications nowhere match what was presented here. I was a history major. I'm also a member of the Costa Mesa Historical Society and a representative of District 2 of the Orange County Historical Commission. So I don't want to see a whole lot of history disappear. I think that most of the youth organizations are only interested in the east side of Placentia Avenue, not the area that is historical sites. I have to say this, Costa Mesa Pop Warner just completed its 50th anniversary, and we were one of 2 organizations. The old baseball, there was a Harbor Area Baseball program, which I also worked in, or volunteered in, but I'll hold it down real quick. Our Costa Mesa Pop Warner cheerleaders, the 9 to 12-year-old girls, took first place in the Orange County conference competition the other day. I got to recommend that we don't pay much attention except for the football players, but the cheerleaders are very active too. When I was in college, I remember a speech teacher that I had said there are 3 things to remember when you're speaking in public, is to stand up, speak up, and shut up. So I'm going to shut up.
Just one comment here. I hope there's not a misconception. There are vernal pools on the east side of the park. There is also an archaeological site on the east side of the park as well. That needs to be studied just as hard as anything on the west side, and we will be expecting that of SRS. All right, sir, you're on.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Bonnet. I'm the director of Back Bay Rugby here in Costa Mesa. He's laughing already. That's in trouble. Just to give you a little background on me, I'm kind of on both sides of the fence. I live on Canyon Drive. I use the park every weekend. I mean, I run through the park. I run down the channel. So I love the park. Okay. On the flip side of it, I'm a coach. We started a program here in Costa Mesa in 2006. With about 10 kids, and we have all pushing 300 kids now. So athletics in Costa Mesa are picking up. I mean, obviously you've heard the numbers from the football, from us, softball leagues, everything else. So if anything comes out of this today, I mean, I'm going to take up a lot of time, is the need for athletic fields. Whether it's Fairview Park or it's somewhere else, there's a lot of passion in this room, which is awesome. but let's try to concentrate that passion on both places. Maybe we're looking for somewhere else. Maybe not Fairview Park, but that's the opportunity that's in front of us today, and that's why we're exploring it. All the athletic groups right now are, we're willing to work with anywhere. I mean, we're very easy to work with and where we want to go. So I mean, displacing us from one place to another, I mean, that happened to every group in here. I mean, probably the hardest working man in the room is Mr. Knapp over there, who has to put all of us on fields all the time, and then the light changes and he's got no lights. So, I'd like to appreciate him as well, because that's the hardest working man in the room right now. But if we can take this passion and put it together and come up with a solution where everybody's happy in here, I think it's the best thing for the city of Costa Mesa. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
John Rubright, citizen of Costa Mesa and commissioner of the largest youth group here in Costa Mesa. When I became commissioner about 9 years ago, Jack Hammett, formerly known as a farm, only had 2 lit fields. I worked to get the 4 other fields lit up. We're up to 7.5 fields for over 1,400 kids. And in order to have a productive practice, you need a half a field just for one team. We put 6 to 8 teams on one field at a time. If you go to the farm fields or Jack Hammett, it's packed. We don't have enough room. And all these people that say, oh yeah, you can go someplace else. Well, I'm ready to hear where. Because a park is for everybody, and that includes kids and sports. And I find it odd that me being the largest youth group, that the first presenter didn't even bother asking, my opinion. There are a lot of passionate people here that are presidents that oversee a lot of kids. You have to think about the kids too, not just yourself, okay? So take that in consideration. We have the future of Costa Mesa under our care, and we need to take care of them, and that's what I'm here for, is to take care of the future of Costa Mesa. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening, Chairman Marin, Vice Chair Smith. I'm Byron DeArcle. I'm Chairman of the Parks Commission. I'm not here to offer an opinion of any kind. I'm letting you guys do your work. Look forward to the product that you deliver up to us at some point. I wanted to see if I could actually want to provide, and I hope Ms. Vrska will let me do this, some supplemental information to her presentation. Appreciate the effort she put into it. Appreciate the time I had to meet with you. The citywide field assessment that Mr. Knapp and his staff have pretty much wrapped up and conducted is very comprehensive, and I want to offer some top lines so you guys have a broader community-wide content with. We permit and allocate 27 facilities in Costa Mesa. There are 67 fields on those 27 facilities. I think, Bob, 4 of those are permanently lit and 4 are temporarily lit. So 8 lit facilities of the 27 lit facilities. How many fields is that? Don't worry about it. So we have about 5,000 participants in the fall, youth and adult, 5,000 participants in the spring, youth and adult. Interestingly, during this time of the year, daylight savings time, 60% of our field inventory goes offline because it's not lit. So we go from 100% inventory to 40% in the fall when it's dark and we still have lots of kids playing. So all I want to do is provide some context that, do we have enough fields? Depends on the time of year. We don't right now. We don't because our community is growing, and we need to plan ahead. And when somebody looks at our current situation and says, we have enough today, my job as Parks Commissioner is to not only serve the community's needs today, and those will be looked at, as Harold pointed out, in our Open Space and Recreation Master Plan review, and in our Joint Use Agreement review, and in our Field Use and Allocation Policy review. But we need to look 10 years down the road, because my kids are all grown, they don't play soccer anymore, but there's going to be new kids coming up, and the community is going to grow, and we have to prepare for that. It's irresponsible not to. I don't know if Fairview Park's going to be the answer. I'm going to wait for you guys to tell me what you think. So I just wanted to offer that context that we have a lot of people playing on not very many fields, and we need more of them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Greg Ridge. I want to thank you all for putting as much time into Fairview Park as you have. 17 years, I think I've heard one statistic. I am so impressed with Costa Mesa, how passionate they are with Fairview Park. I'm also impressed with how passionate they are about providing sports fields for their children. It just, and also with the Community Foundation for providing, services for the residents. It makes me so happy. I'm also very impassioned by the people who have shown up to try to preserve our history and what we have as a jewel. I look at the Fairview Park Citizens Advisory Committee, and I'm proud of the work that you're doing, although I think I'm more proud of the work that you've done in the past. And this time I'm a little concerned. What I would rather see the efforts placed on is a sports fields advisory committee. I would like to see all the people right now trying to find places to have the kids play, find places throughout the city that they can play, instead of focusing on one 208-acre archaeological resource that has, archaeological significance, it has, federally protected environmental species. We should be looking at areas like the Fairview Developmental Center opportunities. We should be looking at, possibly different areas that we could work on lighting. We should be doing a task force right now that we could be talking to the school district. We should be looking at doing a lot more with artificial turf so that we can expand the field usage. And instead of expending all this effort to try to put everything into those 208 acres, which only represents the one area in the city of Costa Mesa that represents so much importance and significance, we should be looking at the other 67 areas and other areas that we can help enhance the sports facilities in the city. And right now we have this area where Titanic's hitting the iceberg, and it doesn't have to be like this. I think we pretty much answered this question the last time we did this. And as we talk about the people who are growing, we have to look at the census data in this city, which shows an aging population, and it's not getting younger in this city. So we have to look at other opportunities. I would love for all the effort put in right now with this advisory committee to be done on sports fields. But they don't have to be in those 208 acres. The Fairview Park Citizens Advisory Committee needs to be looking at Fairview Park. That's it. The sports need to be looking at the sports that we need in this city, and we need another committee. And we shouldn't be mixing the two. So let's just keep our eyes on the ball, folks. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Good evening, Jay Humphrey, Costa Mesa resident. Like Greg, I applaud the committee for the efforts you're going through, the amount of time you're spending and what have you, in trying to come to some sense of what we should be doing, even though we've gone through that stuff over and over again. I brought up last night at the council meeting that we were given a presentation about what the Parks and Parkway Committee was going to be doing. And in one of those things, which I laud, is they were going to be looking for more open space in the city. They're also going to do an assessment of the parks in the city. In no place, by the way, for all the other things we heard, in no place did I see anything that says we're going to be assessing how we convert places we already have in existence, parks we already have that have the space to have fields in them, with lighting, with fields for sports and what have you. We simply keep on turning to the one big place of open space in Costa Mesa, Fairview Park. And there are so many reasons, you've heard them over and over again, there are so many reasons why Fairview Park is a jewel to this community, an asset to this community, a resource to this community that far exceeds whether or not it becomes the next sports arena in the city. I had kids. They did a variety of sports issues. I always feel that it's important to do. But before we just first look at the first piece of open land, the first piece that has a significant impact on our community and our history, we should in fact look at all the other parks we have in this city And those that actually meet the criteria, find ways to utilize those parks. We're talking about lighting Fairview Park. Like, see, it's a natural passive park, as opposed to other already established active use parks. We're talking about a whole different set of circumstances. It makes no sense to me at all why we would do that. It seems to me that the first thing we should do is figure out if we have the availability of parks anywhere else in the city. And I have not seen one document say that that has actually happened. So before you guys make that decision, I would hope that's what you would do, is assess all the rest of the parks, all the rest of opportunities in the city, all the rest of the proposed purchases of property in the city to, in fact, accomplish the goal of providing fields, obviously needed, but providing fields in areas not there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gordon Boley, Chairman of the Costa Mesa Youth Sports Council. Just following up on Mr. Humphrey's remarks, Ernesto, have we not looked for the last 2 years for opportunities within the city of open land for park or for playing fields? Is that not correct? And what have we found?
We found that there is just very limited opportunities.
That's right.
Continuing to look at every piece of land.
Continuing.
That's available, easements, under power lines.
Right.
Anywhere, and it's just been
Okay.
very tough issue.
Good. Anna, you suggested that every letter that was received represented 15 people. 10 to 15 people. Every speaker tonight that has spoken on behalf of the youth sports represents the 10,000 kids that play in this city that are underserved. Put that down in your notes, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm short. My name's Sue Lester. I'm a resident here. I agree with a lot of what both sides of this argument have said, actually. And I have some suggestions. We haven't heard a lot of those, and I'm not guaranteeing you're going to love them, but we have to have solutions as opposed to just complaints, and I'm trying to be better about that. We do have a lot of sports fields here, and I played sports my entire life and support kids' sports, even though I don't have any children. And it seems to me that a quick fix, as opposed to mitigating and avoiding archaeological things and grading and installing lights in areas where we don't have them. Has anybody ever thought about just getting some temporary lights that can be used at the different schools, and then if a school closes, as was suggested earlier, that those lights could be moved? Now, I'm not a super genius, but I have been accused on occasion to having common sense, and we had an event at City Hall and we had no lights. We had one temporary light that was there that we used, that we were able to light the entire front of City Hall from the police department all the way down. Now, granted, that would probably only light 2 fields, but I would like to see some more options, and that we are in fact doing our due diligence across the city in terms of other parks that can be used and other school fields that can be used. And I would hope that a lot of the schools would be supportive of that option, although I know that the school district typically is like, well, you can't play on this field because we just spent a lot of money on it and we don't want it ruined, which I understand to a certain degree. But if we have those types of fields that we can light, I would hope that our educational system would be supportive of doing that. I'm also concerned a little bit about SRS in terms of, like one of the speakers said, that we've heard a lot about mitigation, but we haven't heard a lot about preservation. And I want to know that when they're doing their observations out there and they're doing their studies, is that something where the people from the different tribes that they're going to be using for input, are those people paid, or are those people that are just interested, that are volunteering to be there? Based on paid or volunteer, would it, if there were other archaeologists that wanted to observe that process, or other people from tribes that wanted to observe that process, would they be allowed to do that? Or is it kind of a cloak and dagger, this is our little investigation and no one can see? And then lastly, I really am interested in seeing what Park and Rec is going to come up with. They work really hard. Bob Knapp works really hard, and they have this huge plan for 2014 to evaluate the entire city. And I just hope before
we jump to the easiest option because it is the largest open piece of land in the city, that we evaluate all the other options that we have and make sure that we're not overlooking something simple. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Kim Hendricks, and I have heard much misinformation. I'm not going to call anyone a liar, but I have heard lots of misinformation. Last night at the City Council meeting, Mr. Byron said that it was youth and adult sports. So there is these little things. Also, he also said at August 22nd meeting that we didn't need to follow CEQA because of mitigated negative declaration, which was incorrect. I've heard other things from planning commissioners that this is needed, this is wanted. Upon further investigation, that hasn't been the case. So it leads the public to think that you have an agenda and this is what you want. But like Mr. Greg Ridge said, you need a different committee. Fairview Park is not the place for a sports field. If you need sports field, well, Costa Mesa Union High School, Newport Mesa Unified School District just returned $15,000 to the city and is going to fund a whole new field at Costa Mesa Union High School with lights and everything, okay? I am a teacher in Newport Mesa Unified School District, and I know for a fact that there are many fields available. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Ms. Strain, I'm from Costa Mesa.
Can you get a little closer to the microphone, please? Thank you, I know. It's tough.
This is random, they're notes that I was taking. The archaeologists and the paleontologists, they're great for the dead things, and the capping and the burying under are good for the artifacts. Augering and just slightly offensive to burial grounds. And I'd like to know if there's going to be consultants on the living things, because the burial of the fairy shrimp was bad. As far as SRS goes, I thoroughly appreciate their background and the work that they have done. On a personal basis, if I have something wrong with me and I need to go see a doctor, I don't go see the same doctor for a second opinion. I'd like to see that more of their research goes back a little further and is also more recent, because there were some recent revelations during a rehearing that we had about some activity development in Fairview. As far as there was a mention about bikers doing some damage to some of the trails and things like that. As a mountain biker, I've had experience with this, and we've done a lot of work through a group called SHARE. It was a bunch of volunteers that were put together, and they redid trails, and they still redo trails in Newport Beach, Aliso Viejo, and a lot of other things. So there is availability for volunteer groups to do things like that. I'd like to say that I heard someone say that they had a school that disappeared and then came back. It's good to know that they can reopen. There was something about 67 fields. Can we get some lights for those? I mean, that seems like a very logical thing to start with before we start with this. 67 fields, how many nature parks? Natural open fields can only be destroyed. There are no do-overs for this park. The sports fields are great for the kids. The nature is good for the kid in all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
There's been public concern about legal issues and SRS. Let me say that the two major ones that I think were voiced have been resolved. SRS did assemble a huge collection of artifacts from the Bolsa Chica Mesa. The resolution was that these were reburied, along with the inhumations, in ritual ceremonies, and so the Native Americans were there, participated, and all of these archaeological materials, which were cataloged, were reburied and permanently placed back in the ground as the law required. A second issue has to do with the Goodell property, and that was the Coastal Commission received applications for a permit, and there was a Phase 1 archaeology that included looking at that property, not doing any excavations. That was conducted, the report was received by the Coastal Commission, approved, and a year later, in 2010, the issue was re-raised because now the fact that they had done no excavation was called an excavation because they trimmed the the bluff sidewalls to get soil profiles. Trimming was then reconsidered as archaeological excavation, probably a very poor definition. That case was resolved with a major concession of funds by the developer because he did not want to see things embroiled. And so it was resolved in its fashion. But the issue is one of little teeny definitions. Those were both resolved issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak now, or should I speak now, or will I have an opportunity under committee member reports?
Well, do you have a specific question or something?
No, I just, one thing I want to say regarding this. In Huntington Beach, Fountain Valley, and Westminster, there are miles of fields, grass fields under the Southern California Edison power lines. We have a half-mile of power lines in Costa Mesa along the Santa Ana River between MacArthur and the freeway. And I think that that might be an opportunity for us to develop some fields. Thank you.
Thank you.